Little Nightmares 2 was a fantastic game. Genuinely fantastic. It takes what made the first game great and just gives you more. More creepy locations, more twisted characters, more life-threatening puzzles, and more of that ambiguous world that we got a glimpse of in the original. Now, this isn't a review for each game. No, I want to talk about something Little Nightmares as a whole does so incredibly well, and that is how it crafts intensity and fear. Now, each game starts off in the same way. You are instantly dropped into it without any context, and straight away that makes you kind of cautious. Who are you? Where are you? What are we doing? That mystery and ambiguity that surrounds these games naturally keeps you on your toes, and it's a great thing since it drives you forward. As human beings, we crave information and understanding. It's natural for us to want answers to everything. Apply that idea to gaming and it can become a powerful tool, a tool that enhances the experience and immerses you deeply into the narrative and world. The first thing that is noticeable in both games is the atmosphere. It is so brilliantly haunting, and for me that stems from such amazing sound design. Honestly, Little Nightmares sound design is second to none, and it does such an excellent job at fully realising this horrifying world. You can hear every sound, whether it is the pipes in an industrial sized ship or the chalk scraping against the blackboard in the room at the end of the hallway. The detail in the sound is just great, and it further adds a level of immersion that is needed for a game like this. A game that relies on keeping you on edge. I mean, just listen to the sound in this scene. Tobias Lilja, the audio director for both games, has talked a lot about what the intention was when it came to creating the sounds and music. In an interview by the sound architect, he discussed the sound in the first game. It's a really great interview and I do encourage you all to go check it out. He said that, "I also wanted the sound effects to have a prominent role and not just work as a mood enhancer or something to accompany the visuals. Each sound should have a clear function and, when possible, also give vital information or clues about what was going on in a scene." It is clear when playing that there was a big focus on audio and the synchronization between gameplay and sound, which is why it feels so impactful. It's pivotal to how we play. It's not just there to spook us, but also give us an indication as what to do. It's not like games haven't done this before, don't get me wrong, it's just that it feels more salient here. When asked whether there was a clear divide between what was music and what was sound design, Tobias responded with, "I deliberately wanted them to constantly bleed into each other by using sounds from the environment as musical elements." This was one thing I noticed throughout my time playing the first game. The industrial ambience you hear from the actual environment can be heard in a lot of the soundtrack, making it all come together really nicely. In fact, both games make use of heavy background ambience to illustrate just how small and vulnerable you are in this world. Hearing your tiny little feet pattering along the ground in contrast to these loud booming noises really puts things into perspective. In a recent interview with Bandai Namco, he goes into more detail about how the soundtrack is there to enhance this nightmare world by tapping into a very surreal vibe, whilst also making the sound realistic. As for the music itself, I absolutely adore it. It is beautifully twisted and adds a tremendous sense of mood. When the camera zooms out to show the player just how small they are in this world, and the music swells up with these loud, low-pitched booms, it truly leaves an impression. Or when you're being chased by the disgusting and disfigured characters, the music becomes frantic and fast and makes sure to make you feel like you can't stop running. Now, without a doubt, Little Nightmares would not be what it is if not for Tobias Lilja. Another thing I really admire about the game is that you are always moving forward. In the first game, you can kind of put together that you are trying to escape. The second game, however, it's less unclear as to what the end goal is, but that doesn't stop you from wanting to keep progressing as we expect answers as we play. Not only that, but you don't want to be spending more time than necessary in all the creepy locations you will venture through. Whilst the first game takes place solely on the moor, a gigantic ship, the second game takes place in the Pale City, a dingy and gloomy city where buildings bend down and the streets are littered with television sets. Every area you find yourself in is oozing with dread. Whether it is the school with deranged porcelain children running around the hallways, or an abandoned hospital with weeping angel-like mannequins, the second game makes sure to switch things up at just the right time. Each environment is full of eeriness and things that can and will kill you, so you never truly feel safe. Throughout your perilous journey, you will come across some of the most weird and twisted creatures I've ever seen in a video game, and I love it. The way they look, sound, move is all terrifying, and these idiosyncratic characteristics are there to make you feel totally uncomfortable. Once they start chasing after you, the panic just kicks in. Now, one of the best things Little Nightmares does is intentionally cause anxiety by timing everything so perfectly to make it feel like you barely survived. Every close call is seemingly intentional and reminds you that you just made it. One of the best sequences is the hospital segment in the second game. This is Little Nightmares at its absolute best. The level of tension is amped up because not only is the environment naturally creepy, but you have these mannequins that only move when in the dark, so you have to aim your flashlight at them to make them stop coming at you. This mechanic requires you to be switched on at all times and aware of your surroundings, otherwise you'll find yourself swarmed. You never know which mannequin is alive and out to get you, so when you enter a room full of them, you are immediately on edge. The camera view in Little Nightmares also adds to what the game is trying to do, which is to make you feel vulnerable. It's limiting enough not to let players fully grasp their surroundings or know just how close they were to a potential threat. It chooses when to zoom in and out depending on the situation to add a sense of uneasiness. Some of my favourite scenes are where the camera slowly pans out to illustrate just how small you are in this enormous and unfamiliar world. Oh, and I love the art style too. It's just really unique and, well, nightmare-like. Dave Mervick, Little Nightmares senior narrative designer, talked about how this stylistic approach was designed to reflect the way Six, and the children in general, might see the world. Everything is more than it is. The world is bigger, people are scarier, situations are more surreal. Now, this definitely rings true, especially in the second game where there is a clear emphasis on distortion across the board. Not only do the shapes and bodies of the characters you encounter all seem contorted, but so does the actual city. Mervick went on to say that the art style conveyed the game's themes and story without words. To have this world feel so other, so that you feel it in your bones, that it was built for others, and that you simply don't belong there. That is one thing that really grabs me about Little Nightmares, is that on the surface they are games about children trying to escape this world of grotesque monsters, but when you play them and delve deeper into the world itself, there is way more to it than meets the eye. For me, the first game is all about greed and consumption, whereas the second game is more so about escapism and corruption. They're very similar in tone and atmosphere, but it's clear from the get-go that there is more world building going on in the sequel, and I really appreciate that. It delivers on providing us with answers, but also leaves things open enough to prompt lengthy discussions on Reddit and Little Nightmares Explained videos on YouTube. Little Nightmares is one of those things that comes around every so often and does things differently compared to others in the genre. It's a nice change and achieves horror similarly to how any other horror game would, but at the same time, it feels completely different in its approach. It's clear that Tarsier Studios had a vision that they wanted to bring to life, a nightmare that you played. I think it's an achievement for a puzzle platformer to be able to genuinely scare me and keep things tense throughout, rarely giving you a chance to take a breather. It's hard to compare Little Nightmares to any other game because every aspect of it feels so unique. The sound design, art style, the world, the narrative, there really isn't anything like it. For a 2D platformer to induce such panic when playing, to get my heart racing and my palms sweaty while squealing with terror is applaudable. Everything is there to make you feel as small and as vulnerable as possible, and that is where the fear comes from. That is where the intensity comes from. I for one would love to see this franchise continue, however, as of now there are no plans for any more sequels, which is sad to say the least, but I know without a doubt that Tarsier Studios' next game will be just as enthralling as Little Nightmares.